Hi, welcome everyone to Coleman Report Live, May 13th edition. Today we have special guest Chuck Evans from Windsor Advantage. How are you doing, Chuck?
Good, Joseph. How are you?
Welcome back. And we also have Lance Sexton, Coleman faculty member, and our editor, Katie. Katie, we're going to start off with what you reported on this morning. And I guess a couple lenders are reporting their PPP stats. Give us an update.
Right. So slowly we're seeing some of the big lenders, actually some of those smaller ones too, are self-reporting what their approvals are. And some of them were just getting a number, like Cabbage has only told us that they've done about 600 PPP loans and they've got about 27,000 in their queue. Others are telling us exactly how much they've done in loan amount and also the total value of those. So Bank of America is reporting they've done almost 4% of the total amount of the program now at just over 265,000, and that's about $24.9 billion. PNC also reported that's about $14 billion of the program, and U.S. Bank has also done about $7 billion. And there's about maybe a little over 20 banks that have so far really come out and told us what those numbers are. And I'm sure we're going to see more of them doing that soon. The SBA has, of course, not told us. They've got their list of the top lenders, but they haven't told us who these lenders are. So I think this is probably going to give us an idea of who's doing these and how they're doing better than what the SBA is giving us right now.
Good stuff, Katie. Thank you. We're going to switch over. Lance, we don't have guidelines on forgiveness yet. We are waiting, and that's a very hot question. So the first round of folks that got PPP funding are halfway through their 8 weeks. Do you see any extension to that? And
so Chuck and I were talking about this before we got started today, and Chuck, you can chime in whenever you want to, but we both feel like there's going to be an extension of the time period where they can use the money. I really feel like they're going to have to, because when you look across America, there are small businesses that got the money 4 weeks ago that are not even open yet. And it's difficult for them to effectively spend the money and do it in a way for forgiveness. The other thing that's interesting is the Inspector General's report that my friend Chuck sent out. Chuck, the Inspector General's report said that 75% payroll was not in the law.
Mm-hmm.
So
it seems like there's going to be a lot of pressure from someone to loosen some of the forgiveness requirements, possibly, only because it's been slapped on so fast. Now we've scared everybody, the bejesus out of everyone, and so I think we'll see some loosening of it. That's my opinion, anyway.
Well, and see, if you loosen up the 75%, those restaurants that got a PPP loan in round one that are not open yet, or maybe open at limited capacity, could use the money on rent and utilities. And position themselves to be ready. I think that's part of why we've not seen forgiveness information yet, is there's a lot of negotiation on what it's going to actually look like. Now, I still believe, Chuck, and I don't know how you feel, I think we're going to see it sometime this week.
I do too. And I think if you're over $2 million, you still need to make sure your P's and Q's are crossed. Under $2 million, I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue.
Yeah, Chuck and I both think that the smaller PPP loans may have a fairly simple process for forgiveness, but the big $2 million plus PPP loans are probably going to require some detailed information.
I would also encourage the listeners, there's a lot of people out there saying we're going to help you with your PPP forgiveness when we don't know what it is. So I wouldn't spend a nickel on getting help for something like that until we have a clear understanding as to what it is.
I'm sorry, Joe. We're so excited we could talk about this for an hour. Another thing Chuck and I were talking about is these people who are quick to return the money, borrowers who got
Yeah.
the PPP loan, I'm trying to encourage them, don't return the money. Set it aside in an interest-bearing account until you know what forgiveness looks like, and then make a informed decision on whether or not you want to return the money and pay the loan.
Yep, I agree with you.
It's interesting that people are returning the funds. It's just increasing the supply. I mean, we're not even close. The demand is slowed down to a trickle from what I've heard, and the supply is still over $100 billion. So,
Joe, I think the supply is even greater only because, Bill Manger reached out to everyone to find out what canceled loans are in the queue. I suspect that because we had a processing platform in SBA Connect and a processing platform in E-Tran, there could be as much as 20% more available than what they're saying.
Well, and Chuck brings up, and Joe, I know we want to get off of this someday, but this is good information. Chuck brought up something to me, and I started thinking through it. Every participant lender was in such a rush to get these PPP loans into the system, get them approved. And once they were approved, every institution in America had customers that said, no, I don't want that PPP loan. Well, nobody's had time to get caught up and cancel those loans in E-Tran. Thus, there are, I was saying millions and millions, and Chuck corrected me and said probably billions of dollars that are in E-Tran as an approved SBA loan that the customers may not have taken that could be canceled in E-Tran and free up even more money in the PPP program.
This just came in, Lance. If you do return the funds, are you able to apply for another PPP loan? I think you're not, correct?
No, you get one PPP loan.
Yeah.
That's why don't
Chuck
return.
Chuck and I both experienced this, I'm sure, in E-Tran. You're putting a loan in and you validate the loan and it comes up and says customer can only have one PPP loan. So once E-Tran associates your EIN, a borrower's EIN, with a PPP loan, that's it. So if you've got a customer that is saying, I'm going to return it, but I may reapply, it don't work that way. They can just have one.
Chuck, this is for you. Are 159s required from agents for PPP loans?
Well, they've tracked it in E-Tran. I don't believe so. What do you think, Lance?
I've not seen anything. When you look at the 2483, 2484, I've not seen anything that requires it. Now, that's another, that could be a can full of worms if all of a sudden SBA came out and said, yes, it's required.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to reach the 75% of the loan amount for payroll threshold to obtain forgiveness?
My understanding is if you don't reach the 75%, then there is a formula for adjusting forgiveness.
Yep.
But this, again, is something Chuck and I, and Chuck, tell me if you feel like I'm on point. I think the 75% number may get thrown out the window at some point when we see the actual guidance.
But we need to be operating like it isn't today.
Right, yeah. As a follow-up.
Now, guys, I'm sorry, Joe. Now, the 75% number is the number for payroll at this point, so let's just assume that sticks. Well, if they don't reach 75%, it doesn't mean that part of it won't be forgiven. There's a formula that gets applied that determines how much.
Is workers' comp insurance considered a payroll expense?
That's an interesting question, and the way I'm going to answer it is I did not consider it a payroll expense.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. See, work comp is something that the employer pays. It's kind of like buying liability insurance to some extent, but it's not associated with keeping someone employed.
Yep. So
that's my thoughts on that.
This is a good question on the employer's portion of the payroll taxes. are not eligible for it. What are you doing for the business owners, Lance?
Chuck, tell me what you guys did at Windsor on this.
It's I understand the employer's portion of the payroll taxes are not eligible. I think we've deducted that, but I need to double check.
Yeah, what they're talking about is the Social Security match.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody is including that as part of the calculation for the PPP loan amount.
Mm.
This is from Paul. Paul, thank you for being such a fan of the show for all these years. Did you see this in the PPP loans under servicing? Does this have to do with the fees? I'm pretty sure this is from the 1502 report. Lance, have you seen this?
I have not seen it. Of course, I'll be pretty clear. In previous posts, I've been involved in the 1502 report. I'm not currently, so I have not seen it.
Okay.
But I read it real quick, Joe. It just basically says that you're certifying that the loans are fully dispersed and that it was submitted by someone authorized to for the bank. They're just basically asking for you to certify that this is a true list so they can pay you the fees.
And that you haven't partially dispersed it, which you can't do. You've given them.
Yeah, and they're asking for an account number, routing number.
I think we lost Lance on audio. And maybe Chuck, you can answer. This is extremely close to that. This is close to home for my wife and I. She runs a school, and a lot of her teachers are on unemployment and receiving more money than they receive actually working. They're receiving more money sitting at home when they can earn full-time as employees. It's challenging to get them back to work. Have you been noticing this trend?
Well, yeah, this in the restaurant industry as well. They're doing better at home in some cases. So I think that the regs stated that if you've made a good faith effort to hire these people back and they chose not to, you're okay as the employer. Am I right, Lance?
Yeah. That's correct. That's correct.
And I think we talked.
But this also speaks to the forgiveness and the wave of activity on what should be forgiven. I think this could be someplace where we see a change. I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we talked about this last week where you need to document, you need to give the employee the option and then document their response.
Yeah.
Email or text or whatever.
And you've done your job.
Chuck, my recommendation to an employer, Chuck, is to make sure you have an email saying, hey, welcome back, your job is here, come take it. And their reply, no, I don't want to take it, I like unemployment, is perfect documentation. But you need something. You can't just say, hey, I called 20 employees and they all said no. I think that employers really need to think about this and use email or even text message.
Yeah, something documented then you're okay, I believe.
This is a good question from Sherry. Thanks, Sherry. Do business phone and internet services count as a utility for forgiveness?
I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
And just Paul clarified that this one was on servicing, not the 1502. Apologize, Paul. Thanks for sending that in. And a couple more. Sorry, this is a long one. There we go. What is the sole proprietor Schedule C spend? Sorry, what can a sole proprietor Schedule C spend on the funds personally?
Well, I think basically a sole proprietor with a Schedule C is doing income replacement, so they can pay themselves.
Yep, as long as it's 75% of what they made and the other 25% for utilities, leasing, those kinds of things.
Can a trucking company pay for gas as a utility expense? I think that's.
I do not think that gas would qualify as utilities.
That's a guess. I agreed, Lance. I don't think so.
Yeah, utilities, they're talking about electric, gas
Like-
to the business building, internet,
Or you
telephone.
just, yeah.
Chuck, I would think cell phone would qualify as a utility.
Yeah. I wouldn't see why not. I mean, I don't think it's going to make a big difference.
But I want to be clear, everybody. Chuck and I both. Chuck and I always we're long
We're
time
not paying
friends.
your loans back either if they aren't forgiven.
Yeah.
Just it's our
Yeah. But Chuck and I both believe that when we see the final guidance, that there's going to be a different picture than that hard and fast 75% on
Hopefully.
payroll, 25% on rent and utilities.
Yeah. And Jim, thank you for the clarification. He says gas qualifies for an employee vehicle as, for example, a plumber or an electrician truck to job sites back and forth. We had a lot of questions today. I think we did a great job. Katie, we look forward to your reporting on what's going on in DC and what's going on in forgiveness and all that stuff. We're doing if we don't get this is a common question. We launched this yesterday and a lot of people are like, what are you guys doing? You don't have guidance yet. If we don't get it, we're going to push it back, but you guys are all registered and we will make sure that we get the webinar to you as soon as possible once we get those. Currently, that's scheduled for next Wednesday. We hope you guys can join us for that. And Lance, Chuck, Katie, another good show in the books, and we do appreciate all your time and support, and we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you. Good day.
Bye.
Yeah.